Dear colleagues, thank you for coming back. I hope you're enjoying the coffee, and I have a good news for you. So we have 25 colleagues wanted to take the floor, and my understanding is that you all must have the floor who requested. And we also agreed with our interpreters that till 18:30 they are ready to work with us. I'm very thankful for the interpreters, because my idea was that in the dinner you will have a hot meal, not a cold one. That's why I would like to remind you that when I give the floor, please do not press any buttons. The microphone will switch automatically. And please, really please, keep your intervention within 2 minutes. Then all the wishes of the interpreters and the chairman will be fulfilled. And our first request is from Italy, Maria Elisabetta Alberti Casellati. Floor is yours.
Voglio ringraziare il Presidente del Parlamento
estone, the President of the Estonian Parliament, Mr. Nestor, and the President of the European Parliament, Mr. Tajani, for organizing this meeting and for focusing this meeting on the crucial issue of the future of Europe and the role that we, representatives of the parliaments, can play for the development of what one of the founders of the Republic in Italy called our common European home. This was Alcide De Gasperi. It's an extraordinary project, an extraordinary experiment, European Community and the European Union, and which are responsible for the longest period of peace in our continent. This awareness should lead us today to reflect together on what does not work, on what makes Europe and its institutions so far from the citizens, and yet the great challenges of our world, transformation of key elements of our production systems, geopolitical threats, the need to manage growing migration, climate change. These are all challenges that we can only tackle together at European level. Only together shall we be able to tackle these challenges effectively, out of respect for the principle of subsidiarity that national parliaments are the guarantors and keepers. We are at the dawn of the presentation by the European Commission of a draft future budget for the European Union. It's an opportunity we shouldn't miss. Realistically, but also ambitiously, we need to try and redraw the budget in order to transform it into a tool responding to the challenges of a never more interconnected and globalized world. Europe and its budget must deal first of all with the protection of those who are the European public properties, policies that states cannot perform effectively on their own, and that have to be dealt with together in a European fashion, in a collective fashion. And I mean, first of all, management of European borders, because these are not national borders, not only national borders, they are common borders that call for common and shared action. We need to lead to conclusion the debate on the lengthy debate on the reform of the Dublin regulation. We need to find realistic solutions, but effective solutions. We must build external and internal solidarity, imagine these phenomena that only together shall we be able to deal with effectively. This is a crucial aspect that has to be part of the conclusions of our conference. I would like to thank the European Parliament for raising the issue in such a clear way with a proposal for an amendment that has already been carried. And then the other European common properties are defense and security, because Europe has to be able to defend its own citizens, must be an authoritative player in the international arena, and Europe, and that Europe can give good results, good responses to disorders and to turmoil in the world, while a divided Europe will make skepticism grow and will lead citizens afar from the European Union. The European Union has an added value, and we should be able to protect our citizens and to ensure solidarity.
Thank you.
A moment, please. Only in this way shall we be able to rekindle the idea that was at the basis of the founders of the European Union. Italy is aware of this responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will be really thankful if you try in 2 minutes. The next honorable colleague who will try to make the speech in 2 minutes will be Demetrios Silouris from Cyprus. Please, your floor is yours.
Dear Speaker of the Estonian Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, our debate on the future of Europe should prove our determination to undertake even more strenuous efforts to promote direct and sustainable solutions which will lead to the reconstruction of a safe, prosperous and participative European Union for all its citizens. The issue of security may have emerged recently as an emergency due to the terrorist attacks in member states of the European Union. However, the collective security of the European Union is inextricably linked to the security of every single member state. The recent report of the European Union on Turkey underlines the security challenges faced by Cyprus due to constant violations by Turkey against the economic exclusive zone and the airspace of Cyprus. I do have still a bit of time, right? Yes. So having said all the above, the plans for the future of the European Union should move mainly towards two directions. The European Union should, above all, resort to sustainable, substantial, visible and fundamental changes which will bridge the democratic deficit, which will eliminate the democratic deficit that currently exists in Europe and allow citizens to advance their proposals and voice their opinions. So this is where I will stop, and I believe that Mr. Tajani
I'm really thankful.
covered everything else.
Beautiful. Our next intervention is from Serbia. Ms. Maja Gojković, the floor is yours.
Poštovani predsjednici parlamenta,
Distinguished speakers of parliament, ladies and gentlemen, numerous challenges facing the European Union and the challenges that are ongoing within it require us to be open in dialogue, demand us to be wise in choosing the solutions, courageous in implementing these solutions, and to be solidary in facing the consequences. One way or another, Serbia participates in all the challenges the European Union is facing. Moreover, we invest additional efforts in our own reforms and harmonization with the EU standards, which is reflected in the positive annual progress report of the European Commission for Serbia that was represented a few days ago. We are doing this in order to make a valuable contribution to the European Union, to one of its most successful policies, that is the enlargement policy. Our full commitment to the Europe integration processes is based on our belief that all these efforts, which may sometimes include difficult and painful measures, are in the best interest of our citizens, peace, stability and prosperity of the region, and thereby of the EU as well. This is why it is important that the perspective of full membership is credible, with visible goals set by a stable and strong European Union, having regard to the principles and values on which this great project is founded. Honourable members of Parliament, historically, the European Union has been constantly developing by overcoming crises, by coordinating policies and finding new directions of acting, while simultaneously the enlargement process was ongoing. A strong or an enlarged European Union. For Serbia, this is not a real alternative because a significant part of the European Union's strength lies exactly in its enlargement. It is very encouraging for Serbia that ever since the European perspective was opened at the Thessaloniki summit in 2003, we have recently, for the first time, been given a time frame, the year of 2025, as a year of possible accession. By providing this indicative time frame for the accession, an important message was sent to the whole region, indicating that the enlargement policy continues, which is showing the strength of the European Union despite the challenges faced by the community today. There is a historical opportunity before us to enhance the integration process, which we must not miss. We hope that the forthcoming summit in Sofia will fully affirm this perspective and provide it with clear guidelines. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And the next intervention is from Spain, Pío García Escudero. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente Néstor. Queridos colegas, la Unión Europea no está exenta de amenazas y el principal desafío, la amenaza más importante, es el crecimiento de los movimientos populistas y los ultranacionalismos radicales que hoy sacuden Europa. Y como decía el presidente Tajani, van contra el modelo de las democracias liberales y parlamentarias dominantes desde
This is against the model which has been prevailing this is the Second World War. And we should remember what history teaches us. Divisions, barriers only result in conflicts, in pain. And I am saying this in relation to what is happening in Spain, in Catalonia, which results from a clash between the pro-independence and also the ultra-left. They are against Spanish unity, national sovereignty and equality for all Spaniards. That's to say the very basis of our constitution and the rule of law. The result has been a threefold response. At the social level, the majority, let me repeat this, the silent majority that are not pro-independence in Catalonia are speaking out. The Senate response applying Article 155 of the Constitution meant that the President of Catalonia was removed from power. The situation will only end when the Catalonian Parliament chooses a new government. Now, the legal action taken against these people, which are very serious. They will be investigated and they will be judged according to what they have done, not according to their ideas. This is important for all those who have been prisoners, political prisoners. This is what they are talking about today. It is sad that we have to repeat what is obvious. Thank you very much to all the European Union members. Thank you for the solidarity. Let me warn you about the possible contagions. We are all aware that Europe can only last if it defends strongly the European values, democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and loyalty among the European countries in their application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next intervention will be from Slovenia, Milan Brglez. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, for hospitality, organization, and an opportunity to speak. Dear colleagues, approximately a decade ago, the economic crisis pushed Europe and the EU into an identity and ideational crisis that still has not been properly resolved. While focusing predominantly on saving the Eurozone, we all somewhat forgot about our fundamental purpose. First, ensuring a dignified life for our and thus EU citizens and inhabitants, and second, becoming a global role model for communities of states. So I propose two fundamental theses regarding the future of the EU. The first one, the EU and its member states must reinforce the fundamental values upon which it was built. The argument for this thesis is, first, Even though the initial European project was based on economic instruments, its purpose was much more profound: to ensure durable peace, prosperity, and prevent the rise of undemocratic regimes and ideologies suppressing individuals' fundamental rights and liberties. This purpose has clearly been reflected in historical development of the EU that was based on values of democracy, rule of law, and fundamental human rights. Second, we must do much more than pay lip service to the return to the fundamental values. A value-laden European project and community have to be reflected in reality. Two examples. First, tackling the migration crisis does indeed call for consistent, effective, and durable external border protection, but it also calls for a common migration policy and asylum system that reflect genuine solidarity and burden sharing, and it is based on civilization and human rights achievements. Second, enforcing a rigorous rule of law means that states should to the point fulfill their legal obligations, and European institutions has follow. The second thesis, debates on the future of Europe must move from blueprints to action and must focus on actual needs of European citizens and inhabitants, as well as the EU as a whole. In this context, when seeking political compromise, we must be careful of two things. Firstly, that compromise does not water down great ambition. This is what happened with the Rome Declaration last year. And secondly, that these compromises will be balanced, reflecting the need for a more competitive and genuine social Europe. In this respect, I would just want to put it down that for Slovenia, unity and equality among members is very important, as well as we are very glad that also we are now dealing with our neighborhoods in the south and in the east. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next intervention is again from Spain. Ana María Pastor, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente Nestor. Muchas gracias por su acogida.
Mr. Nestor, thank you very much for your hospitality. Dear colleagues, since Spain became member of the European Union in 1985, we have observed the years of the largest welfare modernization and well-being in Spain. And throughout these years, all these efforts really bear its fruit, because we worked with a conviction and we built a Europe which is more tolerant, more peaceful, and with a large conviviality. This effort, which leads to this effort, I truly believe it's a sine qua non element which has to take into account democratic principles when we face, for example, populist or nationalistic challenges. It is no doubt that the European Union really responded and have been up to the level of the achievements when the Spanish nation as such had been attacked. Catalonian institutions try to violate our constitution and the rule of law. What happened in Spain must be a lesson for everyone who, in any place of Europe, may feel the temptation to transform their ideals, violating the rule of law. Our democracies must be strengthened and guided by the laws that we have sanctioned and passed. These laws have their benefits and our obligations because they are the final guarantee of our freedoms. Dear colleagues, I fully agree with what has been tabled out. We have to bear a single voice for a more secure Europe, more prosperous Europe, and more safer Europe, taking into account the needs of our citizens, try to reinforce our communication, our national parliaments with the European Union and with society at large. That's why I believe in polls and other surveys which will guide us during the way. I believe that we need important measurements and readjustments. I also support the new composition of the Parliament, and I believe that we have to speed up all the working and the bearings of the Union, and especially taking into account this agenda that has been launched in the European Union. To quote, or to end, I would like to quote two things. Young people are waiting for us politicians the solution to some of the most important problems that they will face in their lives. One of them is the lack of work and also insecurity, but also, and I finish very soon, we are also dealing an aging population. We have to face this demographic problem. Only together, working together in Europe, we are going to achieve this goal. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Our next intervention is from Romania, Mr. Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu. The floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the European Union witnesses unprecedented and varied challenges, both internal, generated by the economic and financial recovery effort and the resumption of economic growth, and external, generated by increased instability in our neighborhood, the migration phenomenon, and its connected challenges, as well as the terrorist threat. Moreover, a brand new challenge needs to be tackled by the EU, the withdrawal of the United Kingdom. Along with many of you, I attended last year an important moment in the history of the EU on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of the Rome Treaties. The Rome Declaration has been adopted, and it's offer a positive perspective to the Union and to the Member States by emphasizing the worth of the European joint effort and the need of the Union's continuation in defending European interests and fundamental values. We ought to continue in the spirit of the last year, following the EU Speakers' Conference, and find the best ways to address the challenges of today, bearing in mind the already recognized truth that the EU has been proving to be the best existing common instrument we have. We encourage a cohesive union on all its dimensions, political, economic, social, benefiting all of its citizens without divisions or imbalances between member states. For Romania, the cohesion between member states remains a key pillar for the future of the Union. Only by doing so, we may ensure the sustainability of the European project. Romania intends to have a positive role in shaping the future of the EU. In the current reflection process on the future of our Union, Romania aims at bringing a substantial contribution towards the consolidation of the European project, the more so as Romania will assume the presidency of the EU Council in 2019. In one of his speeches about the EU status, the President of the European Commission, Mr. Juncker, asserted that Europe needs to breathe with its both lungs, east-west. I salute this statement, and I once more underline that a multi-speed Europe is not able to depict a developing instrument of the European project as a whole, but might rather deepen the member state segregation. I'm expecting the EU to defend its fundamental principles, especially equality between member states. Thank you.
Thank you. Alojz Kousa from Slovenia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, in recognition of the importance of discussion concerning the future of the European Union, which has yet again found itself at a historical juncture, the European Commission issued the White Paper on the Future of Europe, which presented 5 possible scenarios of the future of the European Union until the year 2025. The White Paper stimulated a variety of debates in National Council of the Republic of Slovenia. In this respect, we stress the unacceptability of the idea of two-speed or perhaps even multi-speed European Union, which may stimulate the member states that wish to jointly achieve more to form one or multiple coalitions of the willing cooperating in various fields. This solution would create inequality among the member states, gradually weaken the unity of the European Union, and undermine the foundations on which the European Union was built. More should be done in the field of diminishing inequalities among the developed and underdeveloped states on the global level, as underdevelopment, economic crisis, wars, and climate catastrophes cause numerous illegal migrations to the European Union. In regard to this, I appeal to all member states to demonstrate solidarity to the most vulnerable countries and ensure adequate aid and support. More should be done, not only in member states, but also in migrants' countries of origin and so-called transit states. In light of this, I propose a deeper cooperation among parliaments of the member states of the European Union and African states. I believe that, for example, cooperation in the framework of meetings of the Association of European Senates and the Association of Arabic and African Senates could serve as an appropriate panel for the discussion on migration challenges also in the future. We must recognize the significance of migrations as a global challenge that also requires a global response. Lastly, let me emphasize once more that the European Union has and in its history continuously made efforts to ensure the respect for the rule of law among its member states and across its borders. Hence, we must strive today to an even greater extent than in the past to ensure the respect of all member states without distinction for the rule of law and adopted international legal commitments. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our next intervention is from Montenegro. Ivan Brajovic, the floor is yours.
Zahvaljujem, gospodine predsjedniče, i čestitam na organizaciji
Chairperson, and I would like to congratulate you on the organization of this conference. Dear colleagues, I was listening attentively your thoughts about the future of the European Union, and I want to tell you that whatever the future structure and the form of the Union is, I'm completely certain that the Western Balkans, and especially Montenegro, will be a member of the European Union very soon. The enlargement policy of the EU is of key importance due to its encouraging effects on the reform processes in candidate countries, and that's why it must not be stopped or it has to be promoted. Montenegro is ready to provide its contribution to the European family of nations, and we are practically behaving as a member of the European Union, because when it comes to the common foreign security policy, we are behaving as if we were a member of the European Union. Montenegro has a millennium-long duration and history, and our good neighborly policy and devotion to regional cooperation is very well known. There are also some tragic events from our recent past, so we have made a great progress. We became a NATO member, and we also are implementing the reforms which are very important for the lives of our citizens. And we have progressed mostly among our competitors, and we believe that we will be the next first member of the European Union. And I believe that also our citizens supported pro-European policy in our recent election as well as in our previous elections, and I believe that it should be awarded. We are not looking for any shortcuts to our membership, but we also expect more active and more realistic approach when it comes to the enlargement. You should have in mind the degree of the progress, and every country should be admitted in the moment when it is ready for its membership, and we believe that the only just principle is the only just principle, and these 2 minutes are really short. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next intervention is from Italy, Maria Edera Spadoni, please. The floor is yours.
Grazie Presidente. Ho molto apprezzato l'approccio al dibattito suggerito dalla Presidenza estone, in particolare l'accento posto su un dato di fatto spesso sottovalutato: la forte sfiducia dei cittadini nei confronti della costruzione europea.
We don't have interpretation from Italy.
Molto bene.
Can we start again? Thank you. Maria, you will start again.
If there is a problem with Italian, I can also have the speech in English, President.
Let's start again. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we don't have interpretation. Let's start again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ho molto apprezzato l'approccio al dibattito suggerito dalla Presidenza estone, in particolare l'accento posto su un dato di fatto spesso sottovalutato: la forte sfiducia dei cittadini.
No, non c'è traduzione in questo.
Excuse me, President, is there any problem with the translation?
Yes.
Is it better if I do the speech in English, maybe?
Absolutely, that's
okay,
fantastic.
So just give me 1 minute.
Let's use the common European
just
language, bad English.
To check the speech.
Please start again. I'm sorry.
No problem. In Italian or in English, President?
In English.
In English?
Yes.
Okay, so just give me 1 minute. I try to get.
I give you 1 minute, even if you want more.
Okay, so thank you very much, President. I greatly appreciate the approach to our debate suggested by the Estonian presidency, in particular the emphasis placed on effect, which is often underestimated. The great lack of confidence of citizens in the process of European construction makes undertaking a reform of the Union unrealistic today. Our citizens feel increasingly detached from the idea of Europe, which has taken shape over the years, because they perceive it as inward-looking and incapable of providing a response to their expectations and primary needs, or of adequately facing up to global challenges. This because they see that the main policy and legislative decisions are essentially taken in institutions perceived as not very democratic or transparent, such as the European Council, and according to the logic of intergovernmental compromise rather than a common interest. In order to relaunch the process of integration, it is thus necessary to strengthen our contact with citizens and translate their requests into far-sight actions. Against this backdrop, it is of priority importance to redirect the goals of European policies and legislation. We need a union characterized by solidarity, which leaves no one behind, no state, no social group, no person. A union which does not restrict itself to overseeing the stability of public finances and the banking system, but which can most of all promote sustainable growth and quality employment by stimulating investment, which can establish mechanisms for the mutualization of sovereign debt, which can set objectives and criteria for social inclusion and combating poverty that are as binding as those applied to fiscal discipline, which will focus its attention on the possibility of establishing a European unemployment benefit or a European citizenship income financed from the common budget, which can manage migratory flows according to principle of solidarity and fair burden sharings. All these goals are largely achievable by making effective and democratic use of the institutions and procedures already envisaged in the current treaties. On the other hand, I deem less useful in the current phase exercises of institutional engineering, which proposals to establish new bodies and procedures and the calls for more Europe or less Europe. Greater European integration can only be built through concrete achievements, which first create a de facto solidarity among our countries and people. I am not denying that in the medium term a review of the institutional arrangements is necessary, but I am firmly convinced that reforms cannot be handed down from above. Instead, they must be the result of a process which directly involves citizens, in line with a number of innovative experiences which have taken shape in recent years. In this context, our parliaments, as institutions which are democratically elected and which are those closer to our citizens, can and must play a more active and effective role in the process of European integration, starting from the current debate on the future of the Union. Dear colleagues, we cannot restrict ourselves to the mere defense of national competences, in particular through the application of subsidiarity checks. Instead, we must play a more active role in defining the Union's policy and legislative decisions, scrutinizing and setting guidelines for our governments, and maintaining a dialogue with the European Parliament and the European Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and sorry about the problems. Netherlands, Ankie Boekers-Knoel, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I think even now, almost 2 years after the Brexit referendum, we are still in disbelief that the UK will eventually no longer be part of the EU. And seeing the immense consequences of this decision for all of us, and for the UK, of course, I can only shake my head and think, what on earth happened? The UK leaving the EU does bring about a new dynamic on the European continent. We have seen the Franco-German friendship rekindle. I think it is wise to foster this alliance and take the initiatives to strengthen the core of the EU into serious consideration. I, however, call upon the French and German leaders to actively seek support among the other member states in their views on how to move forward. but I also call upon all other member states to take an active stance. We need to put our cards on the table and acknowledge our own responsibility in how we want to move forward. Of course, we have to face the budget consequences of the Brexit. In my country, the Netherlands, we are of the opinion that the 27 should not maintain all expenses at the present level, nor do we favour taxes at the European level. Having said that, I for one believe that the European Union is where our future lies. Many of the challenges that we face are common to all of us and can only be tackled together: trade issues, climate change, terrorism, and security or migration. Solidarity benefits our citizens, and that brings me to the important fact that we must have the support of our citizens. For this support, there is one key word: transparency. Transparency in decision-making. Transparency helps citizens to be able to gain trust in the institutions. The European Ombudsman, Mrs. O'Reilly, has stated that the Council has not been transparent on legislation, and last month the European Court of Justice also said that the legislative process is not transparent. So let's ask our governments to react to these latest opinions on more openness in the legislative procedures and keep transparency on the European agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next intervention is from Malta, Claudette Buttigieg. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It is indeed an honor for me to participate for the first time in such an August gathering, and I would like to thank the Estonian presidency and the Speaker Nesta for the excellent organization. For the past 10 years, the European Union has not seen a smooth running as much as one would have hoped for such a great project. In this period, the Union has experienced a succession of crises, from the financial to the migration crisis, resulting in growing disillusionment with Brussels in certain member states. The growth of anti-EU sentiment in some member states is evidence of this, and as President Tajani said earlier today, we cannot blame the citizens. This is our responsibility. And of course, we cannot speak of anti-EU sentiment without referring to the exit of the UK from the EU, made possible nonetheless by provisions introduced in the Lisbon Treaty itself. The scale and repercussions of the decision of the UK are truly unprecedented, leaving many actors in the Brexit scenario adopting a wait-and-see scenario. It falls upon those of us who really believe in the European project and the values and principles it is founded upon to make sure that it can survive this quasi-existential crisis it finds itself in. Gathered here today, we are representing European parliaments at their highest level. As representatives of our citizens, we are responsible to ensure that all citizens we represent be brought to the core of the European debate at this very sensitive juncture. Too often we hear arguments along the lines, Eurocrats have no business to be meddling in our internal affairs. Diametrically opposed to this, we hear arguments like, why is the EU not taking any action in a particular situation? Clearly, in some member states, more than others, the citizens fail to understand that they are the EU and that the EU is them. As we near the 10-year anniversary of the entry into force of the Lisbon Treaty, I urge each and every one of us to evaluate the extent to which our legislatures have made use of the new powers accorded to them and how they can further be exploited to ensure that the role of parliaments in the European project is a truly participative one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And our next intervention is from Finland. Paula Risikko, ole hyvä.
Kiitos. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin by congratulating and thanking the Estonia presidency. Dear colleagues, I am Euro-optimistic. I do not buy the gloomy talk of an EU crisis. The EU is always in crisis. Then it moves toward, usually to something that is not perfect, but always an improvement. We have a good formal framework for discussing the EU's future, but only the substance matters. Institutional reform may be important, but only if it delivers security, jobs and prosperity. Voters' choices are not really pro or contra Europe. They are more fundamental. Voters want concrete things, security, jobs and good schools. Too often the debate about Europe has been abstract. Many issues are truly European. However, not every problem needs a European solution. The best way to discuss the future of the EU is do not talk about the EU. Talk instead about real issues. How do we address growing inequality? What social policies provide an adequate life for all citizens? How do we respond to migration? The EU is a tool for common purposes. European integration will come gradually when member states find common practical purpose. Political declarations about the future of Europe have a role, but they can also cause unrealistic expectations or unrealistic fears. Policy statements about solving youth unemployment, global warming, or social exclusion are more challenging because we, the politicians, can be measured against these policy goals. That is what politics is about. Thank you.
Kiitos. And now next intervention is from Croatia. Gordan Jandrokovic, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dear colleagues, this year Croatia will mark 5 years of EU membership. This will present us with an opportunity to take stock on what the membership has brought us and to see in what ways we can contribute to the further development of the European project with our partners. And this is because Croatia entered the EU to stay within it as an integral part. This is one of the most important messages we have to pass on to our citizens, to remind them that the benefits that they daily enjoy from membership should not be taken for granted. Our common goal should be that our fellow citizens are not indifferent towards Europe, and particularly that they are not against it. On the contrary, citizens should feel Europe's advantages and take an active part in its further development. We should provide them with a better understanding of our activities, of the ways and reasons why we engage at the European level, and of the fact that our common interests can be achieved only by joint actions. I am pleased that Brexit negotiations gave due regard to citizens' rights based on equal treatment, and that the negotiation process has demonstrated our unity and mutual trust. I am glad that during the preliminary reflections on the new budget, members focused on increasing the funds for Erasmus+, the new program for science and education and for security challenges. I am also glad that there will not be any major cuts to cohesion and agricultural policies. I am pleased that on the eve of the European elections, a dialogue with citizens was initiated in order to familiarize them with the benefits they can enjoy from the membership in their everyday life. Dear colleagues, in the past 5 years, Croatia demonstrated its readiness for deeper integration. This is particularly evident in the further steps we have set out to take joining the Schengen area and the Eurozone, as we recently joined PESCO as well. And finally, we have to further pursue the policy of enlargement because it is an investment in peace, security, progress, and therefore stability in the part of Europe, but ultimately in the whole European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. And next on our list is László Kövér, Hungary. The floor is yours.
Köszönöm a szót, elnök úr.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, every one of the interventions and presentations had a common point. We all envisage a strong European Union, and the V4 countries, including Hungary, would also like to see a Europe that is based on the cooperation of nation states that works more efficiently. And the strengthening of people's sovereignty, or more specifically the role of international parliaments in the EU's decision-making, has for long been
been a topic at our conferences. And we must strengthen the oversight over the political and legal oversight over the EU's legislation. And I would like to join Mr. Kuczynski's proposal, according to which parliaments should be able to get involved in the decision-making and also to hold this decision-making by the use of the red card procedure. In recent years, in Hungary, we have put a large emphasis on family policy. The Hungarian government adopted a range of different economic policy and social policy measures to help achieve the most important goal of all, to preserve the unity of the family and to support access to housing, to change the demographic processes. And at the beginning of April, we have once again received an important mandate, and we wish to continue these policies because the citizens of the European Union have noticed that the European Union is no longer acting as it used to. We need to provide more pragmatic responses to the problems, and the migration should not be tackled by migration, but by family policy and by a better use of the internal human resources. In order for our European family built on nation states to prevail, we must protect and sustain our achievements so far, and we must also observe the effective legal framework. So it's very important to protect the Schengen system, the single market that is based on the four fundamental freedoms, and it's important for us to regain control over our external borders. And to extend our family, we must facilitate the approximation of the West Balkan countries waiting for membership according to the principle, everyone according to their merit. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And our next speaker on the list is Olga Zriun from Belgium.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Parler du futur de l'Union européenne, c'est un grand défi parce que, je ne sais pas, chers collègues, si vous vous rendez compte, il nous reste exactement
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we speak about the future of the European Union, then we have exactly 13 months to the point where we return the trust of the European citizens towards us so that we could manage these challenges that the European Parliament President, Mr. Tajani, spoke about earlier. Of course, I would like to thank the host country and our friend Mr. Nestor for this great reception that we've received. He has achieved the situation where people all around us are smiling, and that is a big achievement in itself. But in reality, yes, we have economic challenges, but not only. We have to show this social and economic cohesion and what positive it can offer to all member states, and has offered for the past 60 years already. Now, I would like to remind to all these young people who are building the European future that they were born as Europeans already, but we became European. So through this, we can give them this responsibility for the future.
Des perspectives dans un contexte difficile, que ce soit la migration, la sécurité, le défi climatique dont on a peut-être pas assez parlé. Ça veut dire aussi qu'il faut un financement. Et ce financement, il faudra le trouver ailleurs que dans la poche des citoyens si on veut retrouver la confiance. Aussi, lorsque le président Tajani parle à la fois des GAFAM et à la fois de la taxe sur la transaction financière, je ne peux que me féliciter de la mémoire que peuvent retrouver certains parlementaires européens de cette taxe que l'on avait déjà évoquée en 2001-2002. Donc, Monsieur le Président, travaillons sur de nouvelles pistes et redonnons espoir à nos jeunes qui, eux, sont des vrais Européens depuis un instant.
We have to return the trust of our young people for Europe because they are the true Europeans. Next speaker on the list is Nikos Voutsis from Greece. Please.
Πρόεδρε Νέστορ, σας ευχαριστώ και την φιλόξενη χώρα σας.
Nestor, thank you very much. Thank you for your hospitality. The debate about the future of Europe is of an existential nature for the European Union, for it is critical for the mere survival of the European construction. The policies and therapies applied to help our country exit the crisis showed in a crystal clear way the deficiencies and failures of the political choices of the European Union. Let me stress, firstly, the reinforcement of the social nature of the the European Union. The countries of the European South vividly support such dimension. The adoption of the European social pillar within the framework of the Gothenburg Social Summit in 2017 is an important step. We need a new social covenant with the citizens of the European Union, a covenant that will take into account the differences between the European economies, that will reduce the inequalities, that will guarantee labor rights and promote social rights. We must thwart plans about European Union of different speeds. Secondly, we need a new, more democratic economic governance that will strike a balance between the social and the economic dimension of the European policy. Thirdly, we need brave decisions to reinforce the role of the European Parliament and of the national parliaments, and we need to further strengthen the democratic legalization and accountability of Eurogroup. We agree on the creation of the position of a Minister for European Minister of Social Protection. Fourthly, the achievement of the above-mentioned objectives must be discussed within the framework of the multi-annual financial framework. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, envisaging funds to manage the immigration and refugee crisis is of the essence, together with the solidal responsibility shouldering and the application of the common decisions about it. We need to tackle xenophobic and racist beliefs and avoid nationalism.
Thank you. Our next speaker on the list is Jorge Lacaume from Portugal. The floor is yours.
Dear President, dear colleagues, last December we celebrated 10 years of the signature of the Treaty of Lisbon, a symbol of a new, stronger and more integrated European Union. Looking back, many challenges have been overcome in the last 10 years. But looking ahead, more and more challenging goals are still to be achieved. As the Portuguese Prime Minister stated a month ago in the European Parliament, the question today is whether we want to continue to promise a lot and accomplish little, or whether we are able to honor the commitments assumed towards our citizens, having the courage to take the right options and endow the Union with the necessary means and instruments to overcome its challenges. The answer to this question must be a positive one. Thus, we need common actions and strategies to manage policies that are part of the Union's DNA, like the agricultural or cohesion policies. But at the same time, we need to face numerous new challenges, like climate change, defense and security, migration, globalizations, digital transitions, deepening the economic and monetary union, social issues, the consequences of the Brexit, and, last but not least, how to fight the growing lack of trust and confidence towards the European Union. For growing challenges, we need growing means and better distributing mechanisms within the different policies areas. We cannot expect more from Europe without giving more to Europe. For this, the discussions about the new multi-annual financial framework is a crucial one. The Portuguese Parliament adopted several strategies, namely in bringing Europe closer to its citizens and spreading the conscience that Europe begins at home. We had appointed 5 permanent rapporteurs to follow the development of the discussions of the issues objects of the 5 reflection papers of the Commission's White Paper of the Futures of Europe. An economic and monetary union, but more than this, a union of common values, the peace, democracy, rule of law, equality and solidarity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker on the list is Wolfgang Schäuble from Germany. The floor is yours.
Danke, Präsident Nestor. Ich habe mich gemeldet, um
die zwei Fragen, die Herr
Kuczynski an uns gestellt hat, zu versuchen, eine Antwort zu geben. Er hat gefragt, ob wir bereit sind, Subsidiarität zu stärken und ob wir über Vertragsänderungen diskutieren wollen. Ich glaube, dass es Probleme in unserer Zeit im 21. Jahrhundert gibt.
Sorry to interrupt you, Honorable Wolfgang Schäuble. We don't have an interpreter.
That's the best for you.
I'm not sure about that. Can we have an interpreter?
Okay, I will do it in English.
Oh, I am really thankful.
I've just wanted to answer the two questions which have been raised by Marshal Kuczynski. How can we strengthen subsidiarity, and should we discuss amendments to the Lisbon Treaty, to the primary law of the European institutions? My conviction is that in this globalized world of the 21st century, there are matters which can be treated by national sovereignty. And therefore, if we Europeans don't want to become irrelevant, we need European solutions. European solutions can only be taken by European institutions. Therefore, we have to be more engaged in subsidiarity. And we have to discuss and to decide what has to be decided by national parliaments and what should be decided by European institutions. If we want to take European decisions by national parliaments, I don't think that we will improve the principle of decision-making in Europe. Having said this, I am in favor of discussion of amendments to the Lisbon Treaty, as long as we don't get it, and I know it's very difficult. We should not criticize even differentiations in speed and integration, because as long as François de Rugy has just said, as long as we are never exclusive, if everybody is invited to join, we should not block the member states which want to be more fast, and we should respect other member states which would not join at this time. But therefore, differentiations in speed is not against integration.
Thank you. Michael Müller, also Germany.
Herr Präsident Nestor, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich glaube, dass es ein Glücksfall ist, dass wir hier tagen, weil wir mit zwei wesentlichen Aufgaben für unsere zukünftige Arbeit
because we are confronted with two key tasks for our future work. One of them is a dramatically changing society. We have come here to Estonia in order to learn from this digital country, and we are being confronted here with what is already possible today and what we will have to change in our countries. A mobile society which expects cross-border services. Jobs will disappear, new jobs will emerge, and new lives and livelihoods will be possible as a result of this digital agenda. This is something we will all have to deal with, and this will have an impact on our social security systems. In Germany, we are currently discussing pensions, healthcare, unemployment insurance, and these are topics which will be important for all our countries in the future. We are also confronted here with a second topic. We remember that peace and freedom do not come for free and cannot be taken for granted. No, these are things that had to be fought for. And we remember the human chain here, the Baltic Way, the people coming together in the Baltic countries. And this reminds us of the fact that we have to work together in Europe in order to fight for freedom and peace. Any return and any return to national policies would be a step back. This does not mean that we cannot all preserve our national identities, but we should remember that the key objectives, equal living standards, freedom of opinion, freedom of the press, human rights, that these are things that we can only achieve by acting together. And I think we have an excellent foundation in order to work on, and these are the things we will have to achieve in the future. Thank you very much.
Monsieur Gérard Larcher, France, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Permettez-moi de m'exprimer au nom du président Larcher retenu.
Thank you very much. And I am speaking in the name of Mr. Larcher, who is right now meeting with Mr. Tajani and cannot speak himself. The European Union needs a new basis in order to manage with the new challenges. Our citizens demand pragmatism and effectiveness from us, and the goal of the Schuman Declaration was to be show solidarity and also create the political union. With 27 member states, we have to regain these bases. We have to find the added value of Europe, and we can never forget what the main values of the founders of the European Union were. We are talking about the protection of external borders, security and defense policy, economic growth, employment policy, young people, Erasmus Plus, and also the apprenticeship program. When we look at what our cooperation with the Chinese or the United States is, then we can see what our activities must be. We also have to review we should not review the treaties. That would not take us anywhere useful. We only have one Europe, not many different categories of member states.
Je reprends la proposition du président Tajani. Nous devons, somebody behind. Au Parlement européen, travailler mieux ensemble.
Mr. Tajani,
Il nous faut renforcer le rôle
here
du Parlement
in the national parliaments and at the European Parliament, we have to cooperate. We have to increase the role of national parliaments and maybe foresee some kind of a co-legislative method in Europe between the European Parliament and national parliaments. The French Senate has sometimes used this kind of method when it comes to common agricultural policy.
Dear colleagues, I must say to you that unfortunately we have a technical problem and Mr. Stanislav Karczewski loses his place on the list. That's why I give the floor now to him, and my dear friend Mars, bear on me, I buy it afterwards.
Dziękuję bardzo. Już myślałem, że będę ostatni.
I thought I would be the last one and that I could start my speech by saying the last will be the first. But now I withdraw my words and let me start with the following statement. A very interesting debate, President. Thank you very much for the excellent digital and digitalized organization and management of this debate. Very interesting debate. Poland's membership in the EU is a solid foundation of our position on the international scene. Well, Poland, and I think every member state and every representative said that Poland wants the EU to be strong. Everybody wants a strong EU. But we have different definitions of this strength, or we see the way towards the strength in a different way. I will speak to my partners in the Weimar Triangle, and will probably speak about the future of the European Union too. Well, these meetings, these exchanges of views here and in the sideline make us closer to this new vision. For me personally, in my deepest conviction, a strong and agile EU is not an EU. It's not an EU where European institutions have the widest powers and member states are reduced to autonomous provinces. Any close federalization will weaken or blow apart the EU instead of strengthening it. For the EU to be effective, should be able to get the true, not only the formal, democratic mandate for action. And who are the subjects in the European integrations? The EU member states are the subjects. The governments hold democratic mandates which are incomparably stronger than the mandate of any EU institutions. And these governments are accountable to their people, not to the European Commission. Cabinets are dismissed not when they lose the support of the European Commission, but when they lose the support of the voters in respective countries. The non-alternative integration based on the More Europe slogan may lead to Europhobia and the fall of the European project. This is not the path that we want to take. This is not the destination that we want to reach in this journey. And another issue, the democracy to be effective and functional needs to reject populism, and populism is a true challenge for Europe today. There are three sorts of populism: right-wing, left-wing, and mainstream one. As the advocate of the strong EU, we firmly oppose the two-speed or multi-speed Europe. And in my last sentence, the European institutions are set to serve member states and not to be their superiors. Each government is, as I said, accountable to its people, to its voters, and governments who ignore the views of their fellow citizens will get the no by from fellow citizens and not from European institutions.
Dziękuję bardzo. Our next on the list is Mars Di Bartolomeo from Luxembourg. The floor is yours, my dear friend.
Merci, Monsieur le Président et cher ami.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my good friend. Dear colleagues, I am very pleased that we are discussing these values today. These values that our political activity should be based upon so that we could manage these big challenges. But at the same time, I am very worried because clearly our values are not the same between us. But if we do not want our institution to become a great mess, then we have to make our violins sing the same tune. Dear friends, let's make this clear decision whether our main values do they still unite us, or do we establish our values the way we see fit?
And our next intervention is from Turkey. Ayşenur Bahçekapılı, the floor is yours.
Sayın Başkan, Sayın Meclis Başkanları ve temsilcileri.
Distinguished Speaker, distinguished President, first of all, I'd like to thank the Estonian Parliament for its warm hospitality. On behalf of the Turkish Grand National Assembly, I'd like to greet you all respectfully. The European Union is facing various problems like irregular migration, security problems, terrorism, economic problems, far-right, rise of far-right and populist trends, and various other challenges. Inside and outside, Turkey, as a regional partner with key role, is contributing to the solution of these problems, particularly that of migration crisis and security problems, and Turkey will continue to contribute to the solution of these problems. EU membership is a strategic objective for us. Turkey remains committed to EU accession, but unfortunately our accession process is facing some artificial and political obstacles. Turkey is part of Europe. In order to be a real global power, EU needs Turkey. On the other hand, Europe, what we are expecting from EU is not unfair criticism and double standards in our fight against terrorism, but support and solidarity, because our fight against terrorism is also playing a vital role for the security of Europe. On the other hand, we welcome the Western Balkan strategy disclosed by EU in February in its overall lines. Indeed, we support Balkan countries' integration to EU and other Euro-Atlantic institutions and European institutions. But it's not right for the European Union to classify candidate countries under different categories. Each country should be assessed by its merits. So it's not right for the European Union to concentrate on other candidates and to push aside Turkey's accession process. Distinguished participants, we believe in the values of the European Union. So, we believe that European Union should remain at equal distance to all the countries of the world without making any distinction on the basis of any grounds, because this world belongs to all of us and is enough for us. I'd like to wish you success. Meanwhile, I'd like to say that we are not accepting the acts of the Greek Cypriot administration of Southern Cyprus, those acts which are not in line with international norms and rules. Thank you. I'd like to extend you my deepest respect.
Thank you. And the last speaker in our list is Sveta Krayancheva from Bulgaria. The floor is yours.
Уважаеми колеги,
dear colleagues, it is a great opportunity and honor to speak before you on the topic when Bulgaria is holding the presidency of the Council of EU. Last year, my country marked the 10th anniversary of its EU membership. Today, we the Bulgarians see clearly the EU added value. That is why I call on you. Let us make sure that this EU value is added and is made clear, equally visible and tangible to all European citizens, both newer and older member states. We need to uphold our European values while remaining open to the changes brought about by the dynamics of our global world. None of us is under any illusion that European citizens feel concerned and actions and lose confidence. However, let us be absolutely clear. It is solely by a daily examples of institutions working for the people that we can gain trust as politicians. In the context of Brexit, we need more integration. Strengthening a deeper European integration cannot be our single goal. It is necessary for the process to develop further horizontally via the inclusion of the Western Balkans on the basis of a confirmed European perspective for the region. I will never tire to repeat that without the Western Balkans, the European integration will remain an incomplete project. And let no one have any doubts. No prospects of EU membership continues to be a powerful incentive to those willing to build peace, freedom, prosperity and democracy. Dear colleagues, in our immediate neighborhood, there is political instability and some serious security challenges. EU external border protection is one of our most important tasks. EU needs to support member states affected the most by the migration issues. Solidarity and cohesion are of most important for the European project. This need to be reflected in the shaping of the multi-annual financial framework post-2020, a serious impact on which will have the UK's withdrawal from the Union. And I will finish by saying that we should not allow traditional European policies that over the years have proven to be of a substantial value added, such as the cohesion policy, be driven to the background. The first Bulgarian presidency is open to citizens and embodies the notion of our motto, United we stand
Dear
strong.
colleagues, thank you.
Много ви благодаря.
You all for your comments. If you will lead the same conference, and I ask the floor to the intervention, you can cut me immediately. But now I pass the floor back to our keynote speakers for remarks and answers. Mr. Kuczynski, the floor is yours.
Dziękuję panu przewodniczącemu i dziękuję państwu. Chciałbym odnieść się do dwóch kwestii, które zostały
issues that have been raised during the discussion. I would also like to thank for all those
who raised or referred to anything that I raised in my speech. Well, the first issue, I would like to refer to the comments made by Speaker Schäuble. I think it is incredibly important what you have said, sir. I would also very much like to be in favor of concentrating on the attempt to find the answer in our work, in our discussion. Well, we should simply try to find the answer to the first question concerning the debate on the treaties for 3 reasons that I would like to mention now. The Brexit issue seems to be obvious. We will, of course, have to face this. The second technical matter, however painstaking, is a very short time granted to national parliaments to work on draft directives and draft legal acts that are sent to each of our states from the European Union. 8 weeks. Well, and here the European Commission defines those weeks differently. Well, simply this is not enough. We have to specify. If we were to discuss changes in the treaties, the time frame of 16 weeks could be optimal for nation-states. However, Mr. Schäuble attracted our attention to a very complicated matter, which seems to me, and in this cooperation, this seems to be more complicated than like a good Swiss watch. Can we find an agreement, find an understanding, and organize our cooperation within the European Union so that we could have full satisfaction and full consent of all member states of the European Parliament, of the European Commission, in a situation where we do not precisely define the scope of competences of different institutions, and also when those basic values are not well specified and the hierarchy of those values. I think that this is an incredibly important matter, and this should be one of the bases of our work in the future. At the same time, I do not exclude that we could find the recipe for facing the EU of several speeds. I do agree that it is difficult to mind that different member states want to grow faster in different areas. And I would say that this is one major comment. The second comment, much shorter comment, is about the budget. I think that the future budget of the European Union should be budget offering certain perspectives, and I think that this should allow to fully implement policies guaranteed by the treaties, and also it should guarantee the implementation of the cohesion policy. And for these reasons, I think that it might be worth reflecting upon, and I do support this suggestion that we would increase the EU budget to the level of 1.1% of the gross domestic revenue of the EU. This budget would allow us to achieve 3 aims. First, speed up bringing down the differences between direct payments. I think that this is a very important matter. Secondly, we could this way strengthen something that is very well developed in Estonia, which is innovativeness and digitalization. And thirdly, we could counteract the effects of globalization and climate change. Speaking of clean water, clean drinking water as a strategic resource, globally speaking, I also meant this being an element connected with the climate policy. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Danko, the floor is yours.
Ďakujem. Thank you very much. It's always very difficult to follow up the previous speakers from Poland, but I'll try to be very brief. My previous experience from the similar conference in Bratislava indicates we have made progress. During your speeches in Bratislava, you referred to the individual problems faced by individual member states. Today, I really sensed sincere efforts to reform the European Union, to shape the future of the European Union. And I think the basis is what has evolved from this French and German mechanism, and that's the question whether we need to change the treaties and the mechanism of functioning of the EU. I think we need to talk about it, and if necessary, and if it is required by the reality, we need to bring up changes. I would like to thank candidate countries for accepting our discussion going on in the EU. We understand that there are differing views between the Western Balkans countries and that of Turkey. In the very near future, I believe we need to realize and say it very clearly which countries will join the European Union and which will become only a sort of partner countries. And we should be honest and sincere towards those countries and set up very clear-cut conditions for them. Once again, I would like to thank my Estonian colleague counterpart for making this conference possible, and I believe that the conclusions of this conference will show us the clear path to be taken in the future.
And now our third keynote speaker, De Rougy from France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci à
Thank you,
toutes et à tous pour vos contributions.
Mr. Nestor. Thank you to all those who took the floor today in our discussion. In my brief introduction, I said that there might be very different opinions present here, and this was also affirmed by our today's discussion. And this is the situation that we have to cope with. I would prefer us to move ahead in some topics, at least being 27 member states, because otherwise it will happen that we will get nowhere, or we will even move backwards when we're talking about European integration. And now mentioning Brexit, we should not leave aside the financial aspects. When we discuss these issues with our British friends, we realize into which difficulty the country has got to while wishing to leave the European Union. Those who usually like to point to the negative aspects of the European Union, they should also bear in mind the negative aspects of leaving the European Union, and I think that the positive aspects outweigh the negative ones. And I would also like to follow up on those who mentioned the budget of the European Union. When we're talking about the cohesion policy, I think this all has to do with the idea of solidarity. Since the creation of the European Union, the Union has been led by the idea of solidarity, and this has been expressed through the enlargement of the European Union. The solidarity only works if some countries contribute more than they receive back, and this will work vice versa when times change. This is the only way we can make solidarity work for everyone, and this is something we have to bear in mind. We should all support solidarity also when it comes to the planning of the new budget. We should approach it project by project. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable keynote speakers, and thank you all distinguished speakers and dear colleagues for a very lively discussion. All your remarks and contributions were interesting, and I believe that this debate was useful for all of us. With this remark, I will end the first day of our conference. I would like to invite you all to the gala dinner at the Estonia Concert Hall. See you there.